Hey everyone, my name is Alexandra and I am a watercolor artist. With Mother's Day coming up so soon, I wanted to help you guys out with a quick last minute Mother's Day gift idea. All you guys will need is some sort of thrifted frame and some watercolor supplies. We're gonna do this in under 15 minutes, so no time to waste. Let's get started. For supplies today, you guys will need some sort of picture frame. I just got mine from the thrift store. For paper, I'm using 140-pound cold press watercolor paper. I have a napkin for drying my paintbrushes. I'm using 4 different types of paintbrushes today. I have all Princeton brushes, a 1/2-inch oval wash, and sizes 2, 6, and 8 rounds, 2 cups of water, and lastly for paint, I'm using a combination of Winsor and Newton paints. You guys can pick whatever colors you want for this painting. All right, so first thing that I did was cut a piece of paper that will fit inside my frame. So we're just gonna put the frame to the side for now and we'll work on our painting. Today, I wanted to paint a beautiful flower with you guys. I feel like it's so fitting for Mother's Day. So we're gonna start with, you guys can definitely use a round brush. I'm gonna use my 1/2-inch oval wash brush for the flower, and I'm just gonna go in to my colors, and I kind of want to use this sort of red pink mix that I have here. It's a bit of a combination of a few of my colors that I have on my palette, and we are just going to jump right in with painting our flower. So the first layer that I'm doing, I'm starting with it being a little bit lighter. It's not too dark. I have it more of a watery consistency. And I'm just gonna go straight into my painting here and just start painting petals. So I'm using this brush and I'm just painting these super loose round shapes. Now this first layer, it's fine if it kind of just looks like blobs of color. We're gonna add more to it as we go. But I'm using the shape of my paintbrush to get that nice round tip, and I'm just keeping the very center with that white showing through, and we're gonna add more in as we go. So I've done one flower. I'm gonna do another one up nice and high, using the tip of my paintbrush to get that petal shape, and then I'm just lifting it off as I get towards the center. And now I'm just gonna do one more sort of small little flower. Down here, to make it smaller, I'm angling my brush a little bit more. So the idea with this is that we're keeping it really loose. We're gonna add more detail as we go, but for now, I just have sort of a very loose kind of 5 blob type shapes to work as my petals. So now that I've done that, I want to go in with one of my smaller brushes. So I'm gonna use my number 2 paintbrush, and we're gonna go straight in and paint in the stem of our flower. So I'm mixing a little bit of my paints to get the color that I want. So I have my yellow here that I'm mixing with a little bit of my oxide of chromium green to get a nice vibrant green. And coming down from my flowers, I'm gonna paint a super skinny line. So I'm really focusing on using just the tip of my paintbrush, and I'm carrying that line all the way down. I don't want it to be too straight. I want everything to look kind of fluid, nice and loose. We're gonna add a 3rd stem for this flower here, and it's kind of just cutting behind the flower that's ahead of it. So for this, I'm doing 3 separate stems. You guys are welcome to join them all together as one, but I have decided to separate them. So now that that's done, my paintbrushes are falling here. Now that that's done, we're gonna go ahead and paint in our leaves. So I'm using my number 8 round brush, and I'm kind of going into that same color that I was just using. keeping it generally watered down just because we're gonna add some details and do a little bit of wet on wet technique as we go. So with my brush, I'm putting the tip of my brush down and I'm gonna apply pressure as I pull back in sort of a very loose and wavy line. Now I wanna work relatively quickly while it's wet still. I'm gonna go in and just add just to the left side there. So I want to get a little bit more paint on my brush to do this. And I'm just following along that left side just to get it to bleed really nicely and get some nice added shading. So now we're going to go ahead and fit another leaf in here. I didn't have quite enough water, so we'll add a little bit more. And you can see that by starting with this nice, really light layer, I can really build up as I go. And by mixing in the yellow into our leaf, you'll find that you'll get a lot more dimension and it'll stand out so much more. So now we're gonna add to the smaller flower, I'm just gonna do some really little leaves. Tip of my paintbrush is down, and I'm applying pressure as I pull back, and I can add another layer if I find that it's too light. I'm gonna do another one. I don't mind if this one sort of overlaps our other flower there. And then we're gonna do the same idea at the top here. And you'll notice as soon as I mix these different colors, I get a really, really cool color coming out with my leaf as I apply the paint. So we're just gonna do one more leaf, and it's okay if it's overlapping. I'm just gonna cut it off so it kind of looks like it's coming behind this flower here. All right, so now we have layer one done of our leaves, our flowers. We want to add more detail now. So I'm gonna go in with my number 6 paintbrush, or if you guys want, you can use your small paintbrush for this as well. And we're just gonna paint in the center of our flowers. So I'm mixing a little bit of a brown paint that I have with my burnt sienna, just to get this kind of nice vibrant brown. And I'm going to just dot that in to the center of each flower. So it's going to dry lighter than I have it now, but as it dries, we can really build up the layers with it. Right now, while that dries, we can add some more color to each petal and just really bring out the shape of them and really bring out the petals. So I'm gonna go and mix some more of my color. I'm mixing my Winsor red with my burnt sienna. And just with a little bit of the brown that I have, just to tone it down a bit. So again, you guys can use a color that is already mixed for this. I like to combine my colors just to get sort of exactly what I'm looking for the effect and the feel of the painting to be. So now that I have paint on my brush, it's kind of between a watery and a creamy consistency. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna choose a petal to add detail to first. So I'm gonna start with this top one here, and starting from the top, I'm going to add the color that I was just mixing, and I sort of have it curving around where the petal is. And now I'm gonna pull that paint down towards the center. So I can add a little bit more, make it a bit darker. And then I'm gonna sort of work my way around doing similar thing, following that shape that I made initially. I'm starting with doing every second petal just because I don't want the petals to bleed into each other. So I'll work my way around doing that. I can add in some color to this one here. And now while those dry, I'm going to move on to my next flowers, and then I'll come back to those petals in between. And this just ensures that my colors aren't bleeding into each other too much, because I still really want to make sure that they're looking nice and defined. So these ones I can go right beside each other because they're more spaced out. And I'm just painting on the edge of my petal, and then I'm pulling that color in towards the center. So this one, because the petals are closer together, I'm going to do that same concept of sort of painting every second petal. And now I can go back to my first flower here. And just fill those in. All right, so we might add a little bit more color later, but because I am putting this painting into a vintage frame, I really want to give it that vintage look to it. So the next thing that we're going to do is add some pen to our painting. So we're just going to start with a general outline of what we've already drawn. So I'll start with my stems. I'm following along my stem, but I'm being careful to let the green show through. And to give it that really nice vintagey feel, I'll kind of lift my pen up every now and then and just have a really, really light line all the way through. And then we're gonna go to our leaves. So to outline the leaves, I like to follow the general concept of the shape of the leaf, but I'm not following exactly where I've painted. I really like the look where it's a little bit translucent and you can kind of see the white showing through. Now while our petals dry on our flowers, I don't want to jump into them too quickly. We're going to add some more detail to our leaves. So for a few of them, I'm drawing a line down the center and then some veins coming up from that center line. To keep it nice and simple, but also give it a really nice effect, I often will only add those vein lines on one side of the leaf. And then for this one here, I can make it look like it's sort of folded in half. I could do the same over here. And now along these lines, I'm just going to add a little bit of detail with some dots. So I'm adding some really small dots just to give it some detail. I'm not doing a ton with this. It's just a super simple addition that I find makes it come to life, and it just adds some interest to your painting. All right, so now that that's done, we're going to go into our flowers and we're going to outline those. So in the center, I'm essentially just drawing tiny little circle scribbles to make that center of the flower stand out. And then I'm going to outline around each petal, following the same thing that I did with the leaf, where I'm doing really loose lines. I don't want them to be super straight or smooth. Trying to keep a really natural feel. And we're just going to go around and add that to all of our flowers. And now to match it with the leaves, we're going to add a tiny bit of that dot detail. So just coming out from the center, I'm doing a little cluster of dots. And I can kind of follow along the lines to do it. We're just going to add a little bit to each flower, and you'll notice that I'm clustering the dots kind of towards the center of each petal, but it just gives it so much more life. And if you want, you can go back over and make lines thicker if you want to make certain parts stand out more. So if I wanted to, I can sort of go over some parts of my petals and add a second line. And this is, again, it's just a simple way to make it look like you've done a lot and added a lot more detail to it when really you're just kind of scribbling over top of the line that you've already drawn. So if you are following along and doing this as a gift for your mom, one nice thing that you could do to finish off your painting is add your signature at the bottom, and then we'll put it into our frame. All right, so now we have our flowers all ready to go. In under 15 minutes, we'll get them into our frame now. All right, so now that our painting is in our frame, our Mother's Day gift is fully complete and ready to go. Thanks for joining. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, and comment below on what you'd like to learn next. Also, if you followed along, know that I absolutely love seeing everyone's creations. Make sure to share them with me on Instagram at Alexandra Victoria Studio. And happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.